The man in the window. Emma dropped to the floor, her breath caught in her throat. The man in the window had just turned his head. For the past 3 weeks, she had watched him from her dark bedroom. Every night, at exactly 10:30 p.m., the man across the alley would sit in the same chair by the window. The lamp behind him would be on, casting his shadow on the curtains. He would have a drink in his hand and stare at the wall in silence. But tonight was different. Tonight, he moved. He turned his head slowly and looked straight at her window. Emma gasped and pressed her back against the cold wall. Had he seen her? Was her phone screen too bright? Did she make a sound? She waited in complete silence, her heart beating so hard it hurt. The apartment across from hers went dark. The man had turned off the light. She stayed on the floor for a long time, frozen with fear. It had all started by accident. Emma had moved into this apartment a month ago. It was small, quiet, and perfect for starting over. She had left her old life behind, an ex-boyfriend she couldn't trust, friends who had become strangers, and a job that had drained her soul. This new apartment was her escape, her chance to breathe. And then she noticed him. His apartment was directly across from hers, separated by a narrow alleyway. From her window, she could clearly see into his living room. The first night she saw him, he was sitting in his chair, perfectly still, watching TV with no sound. The next night, he was there again, same chair, same drink, same silence. Soon, watching him became her late-night habit. She told herself it was harmless, just curiosity. But as the nights went on, she started noticing small, strange things. One night, she saw a bandage on his hand. Another night, he stared at a photograph for almost an hour, not moving. His face was expressionless, but something about it felt heavy, sad, almost haunted. Sometimes, he would stand up suddenly and begin talking out loud, but there was no one else in the apartment. No phone, no person, just him and his voice, lost in the air. Emma told herself he was just lonely. Maybe he was grieving someone. Maybe he was dealing with pain. That's why she kept watching. Until tonight, until he turned, until he saw her the next morning. Emma felt tired and nervous. She couldn't stop thinking about the way he had looked at her window. She hadn't slept. She had locked every door and closed every curtain. Still, when night came again, curiosity pulled her back to the window. At 10:30, the light in his apartment turned on, but this time, he wasn't sitting. He was standing near the window, and he was holding something. Emma reached for her phone and zoomed in. Her stomach dropped. He was holding binoculars. He was watching her. She stepped back quickly and turned off the lights in her room. She wanted to believe it was just a coincidence, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. The next night, she stayed away from the window. She sat on her bed with the lights off, headphones in, trying to forget everything. At exactly 11 p.m., there was a knock at her door. 3 slow knocks, firm, heavy. She froze. Her heart pounded in her ears. She didn't move. Another knock came after a minute, then silence. Emma waited until she was sure no one was outside. She slowly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. No one. But there was something taped to the outside. A note. With trembling hands, she pulled it down and opened it. 2 words were written in black ink. I see. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. This wasn't just watching anymore. This was something else. She barely made it through the night. Every creak in the hallway made her jump. She didn't close her eyes until the sun came up. At sunrise, she ran downstairs to talk to the building manager, the guy in the apartment across the alley. 3B, she said. Do you know him? The old man looked confused. That unit's been empty for months. Some guy moved out after his wife passed away. No one's lived there since. Emma blinked. No, someone's there. I've seen him. He's there every night. I'm telling you, the manager replied, shaking his head. There's no one living in 3B. That night, Emma didn't care about being afraid. She wanted to know the truth. At 10:25 p.m., she put on her coat, left her apartment, and walked across the alley. She climbed the stairs of the opposite building, heart racing. She reached the door of apartment 3B. The hallway was dark. She raised her hand and knocked once. Nothing. She touched the doorknob. It was slightly open. The door slowly creaked as it swung back. And inside all the lights were already on. Inside apartment 3B, Emma stood frozen at the doorway. The apartment door of 3B was wide open, just slightly, but enough to see the lights were on inside. A strange warmth flowed out of the room, mixed with a faint scent, like burnt paper and something else. Something metallic. Her hand trembled on the doorknob. No one was supposed to live here. The building manager said it was empty, but the light was clearly on. The air felt used, and someone had been there recently. Maybe was still inside. She stepped back, heart pounding. Then she heard it, a soft creak, from inside the apartment. Emma froze. It could have been a floorboard, or someone shifting in their chair, or maybe breathing. She should have walked away. She should have gone straight home and locked her door. But something stronger than fear held her in place, the need to know the truth. She pushed the door open just enough to see inside. The living room looked almost exactly like what she'd seen through her window. The same brown armchair sat near the big front-facing window, a table with a half-empty glass, the lamp with a warm yellow glow, a small old TV on mute in the corner. But something was off. It was too clean. Too still. The TV was off. The drink was dry. There was a thick layer of dust on the table and on the chair. That chair, the one the man sat in every night. No one had used it for weeks. Emma took a careful step inside. The apartment was silent, but not the kind of silence that made you feel calm. It was heavy, thick, as if the walls were holding in secrets. She stepped toward the chair and touched the armrest. Dust stuck to her fingers. Impossible. She had seen someone here every night. For weeks, she turned toward the hallway that led deeper into the apartment. The door at the end, probably the bedroom, was half shut. She took a slow breath and moved forward. As she reached the hallway, her eyes caught something on the wall. She turned her head, a photo frame. She stepped closer. It was a wedding photo, a younger version of the man she had watched smiling, standing beside a woman in a white dress. His wife, she guessed. They looked happy, but something about the picture gave her chills. Someone had scratched the woman's face out, deep marks, with something sharp. She turned quickly and walked down the hallway. The bedroom door creaked slightly as she pushed it open. The bed was made, but untouched, neat, cold. The closet was open, empty hangers. The nightstand drawer was halfway open. Inside, a stack of old letters. She pulled one out and opened it carefully. The writing was messy, but clear. You left me alone, but I still see you. Every night, I know where you are. She felt a shiver go down her spine. The letter was not addressed to anyone, but it felt personal. She checked another and another. Each one had strange, angry sentences, all about someone watching, someone remembering, someone refusing to let go. She stepped away, heart racing faster with every second. Suddenly, behind her, the front door slammed shut. Emma spun around, dropping the letters. Footsteps, soft, slow footsteps on the wooden floor. She ran back down the hallway and stopped in the living room. No one, but the door was closed. The air felt colder now, like someone else was breathing in it too. She turned and looked at the window, the same window she had watched him through, and in that moment, she saw it, a shadow across the alley, in her own apartment window, standing still, watching. Emma stared at the shape. It was a man, inside her apartment, watching from her window, just as she had watched from here. She ran out of 3B, down the stairs, across the alley. Her hands shook as she tried to open the front door of her own building. She stumbled up the stairs, heart racing so fast she felt dizzy. When she reached her door, she paused. The door was locked. Everything looked normal. She stepped inside slowly. Lights off. She checked every room. No one. She opened the bedroom curtain and looked across the alley. The apartment in 3B was dark again, empty. She sat on her bed, shaken. Was her mind playing tricks? Had she really seen a man in her window, or was it a reflection? But no. Reflections don't move, don't stare back, and that shadow, that figure, was real. She knew it. She checked her phone. It was 12:03 a.m. A message notification blinked on the screen, from an unknown number. The message read, "You shouldn't have come." Emma dropped the phone. Her chest tightened. She had crossed a line, entered a place she wasn't supposed to, learned something someone didn't want her to know. And now, someone had been in her apartment. Someone knew where she lived. Someone was watching her now. She picked up her phone again and typed quickly. She didn't know who to call. The police. What would she say? That she watched her neighbor for weeks, that she went into an empty apartment, that the man across the alley doesn't exist, and yet she sees him every night. She deleted the message and set her phone down. Whatever this was, it had only just begun. The man in her apartment. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed until the sun came up, lights on, heart pounding, staring at her bedroom window as if expecting someone to appear again. But no one did. The message was still on her phone. He shouldn't have come. She had blocked the number immediately, but it didn't help. The fear was already inside her. Who sent that message? Was it the man from 3B? But that apartment was supposed to be empty, and now someone had been in hers. The next morning, Emma tried to act normal. She made coffee, showered, even stepped out for groceries. But her eyes kept darting around. Every man who passed her felt suspicious. Every sound from behind made her flinch. She couldn't stop thinking about the figure. She had seen the one standing in her window. Watching, she wanted to believe it was a dream, a shadow, but she knew better. And then something happened that made it worse. When she got home and stepped into her apartment, she noticed something odd. Her favorite mug, the one she always left on the counter, was now in the sink. She hadn't touched it, and on the edge of the sink, there was a faint wet fingerprint. Emma dropped the grocery bag. Apples rolled across the floor. Someone had been inside again. She rushed around the apartment, checking doors and windows. All locked, nothing broken, nothing missing, no sign of forced entry. Whoever it was had a key or knew how to get in. She sat on the floor, breathing heavily, holding her head in her hands. What was happening? Was she being stalked, watched, or worse, was she being hunted? By late afternoon, she had made a decision. She would leave, go to a hotel for a few nights, think, breathe, get help. She started packing a small bag when her phone buzzed again. A new message. Again, from an unknown number. This one said, "Running won't help." Emma's hands shook. She hadn't told anyone her plan. She hadn't spoken a word out loud. Whoever this was, they were not just watching, they were listening. She turned off her phone and dropped it into the sink, covering it with water, but for a long time, she just stood in her kitchen, staring at the floor. Then, her eyes caught something new, a small piece of paper, near the front door, tucked under the rug. She bent down and pulled it out. It was a photo of her, taken from outside her window. She was sitting on her couch, reading, head down, unaware. On the back of the photo a date was written. It was 2 weeks ago. Emma felt sick. Someone had been watching her for days, weeks, photographing her, entering her home, leaving clues, warnings, and she had thought she was the one watching someone else. That evening, unable to stay indoors, Emma walked to the old building across the alley once more. She needed answers. She had seen the photo, the scratched-out wedding frame, the angry letters. She needed to know who the man was. Maybe she was losing her mind. But if she didn't face it, she'd never sleep again. The front door of the old building creaked open easily. This time, she wasn't quiet. She walked up the stairs with steady steps. She knocked on 3B. Nothing. She pushed the door. It was locked now. She backed away, and then heard something, a voice from inside, soft, whispering. She leaned closer, her ear to the door, a man's voice, muttering, repeating the same words. Again and again. She couldn't understand at first. She listened harder. It was a name, over and over. Marla, Marla, Marla. Then a laugh, low, bitter. Then silence. Emma stepped back, heart racing. She returned to her apartment as the sky turned dark. She sat in her room, lights off, thinking, who was Marla? His wife, the woman in the wedding photo. Was she dead, missing, or had she left him? And why was this man, or whoever he was, so obsessed? Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Again. 3 slow knocks. Exactly like the last time. Emma froze. She didn't move for a long minute. Then, slowly, carefully, she tiptoed toward the door and looked through the peephole. No one. But there, once again, taped to the door, was another note. She peeled it off, her fingers trembling. This one had 3 words. Look behind you. Her breath stopped. Every hair on her neck stood. She turned slowly and saw nothing. The hallway was empty. She was alone, or so she thought. She locked the door, shut the curtains, and sat in the corner of the room, hugging her knees. She didn't cry. She was past fear now. She was drowning in it. That night, around 2 a.m., she finally dozed off on the floor, and in her dream, or maybe it wasn't a dream, she heard a voice, soft, right by her ear, a whisper. Why were you watching me?" She woke up in a scream, drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. She looked around. No one, but the bedroom curtain was open, and written on her mirror, in what looked like red lipstick, were the words, "Now I'm watching you." Marla's room. Emma stared at the mirror, unable to move. The words were written in thick, messy strokes across the glass. "Now I'm watching you." The red lipstick mark stood out sharply in the dim morning light. She hadn't moved all night. She had barely slept after waking up from that terrifying whisper. But now, seeing this message, something had changed inside her. She wasn't just scared anymore. She was angry. Whoever was doing this was not going to stop. They wanted her afraid. They wanted her broken. But now, she needed to fight back. She cleaned the mirror with shaking hands. Then she checked every inch of her apartment. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, but something was off. On her bookshelf, where her old college photo had been, there was now a different frame, a small one, black dot. Inside it was a picture of a woman Emma had never seen before. She had long dark hair, kind eyes, and a strange sadness on her face. The back of the frame had a name carved into the wood, Marla. Emma dropped the frame like it was on fire. The name, the voice she heard behind the door, the man repeating it like a prayer. This was her, Marla, the missing piece. But how did this photo get into Emma's apartment? Emma dressed quickly and left the building. She walked straight to the nearest police station, holding the photo frame in her hand. She didn't want to look crazy. She just wanted answers. Maybe someone there had heard of this man or Marla. When she explained everything, the officer on duty listened carefully. He asked questions, took notes, and then he said something that made her heart stop. "We did have a Marla Kendrick reported missing in this area about 7 months ago," he said. "Her husband said she ran away, disappeared one night, no signs of foul play, so the case went cold." Emma's voice cracked. "Her husband, do you have his name?" The officer checked the file. "Daniel Kendrick." Emma's stomach twisted. Daniel. The man in the apartment across the alley. The man she had watched every night. The man who was supposed to be gone. Emma returned home with more questions than answers. So Marla was real, and Daniel, her husband, had told the police she ran away, disappeared. But what if that wasn't the truth? What if Marla hadn't run? What if something had happened to her, in that apartment? And now Daniel was watching Emma, leaving messages, entering her home. Why? Was he confusing her with Marla? Or was this something darker? That night, Emma made a decision. She wasn't waiting anymore. She would go back to apartment 3B, but not just to look. She would search. She needed to know what had really happened there. To Marla, to Daniel, and maybe to herself. It was just after 10 p.m. when she crossed the alley. The building was quiet as always, but this time she brought a flashlight, gloves, and a phone she hadn't told anyone about. A second one she used only for emergencies. The door to apartment 3B was still locked, but Emma had found an old bobby pin and practiced 4 hours earlier that day. After a few shaky minutes, the lock clicked open. She stepped inside and shut the door behind her. Everything looked the same. Dust, silence, faded furniture. But she moved with purpose now. She walked straight to the bedroom, turned on her flashlight, and scanned the room carefully. The bed, the closet, the drawers. Nothing. Then she noticed something strange. The closet had a false back. She gently pressed it, and it opened with a small pop. Behind it was a narrow hidden door. Emma hesitated only for a second. She stepped inside. It was a small secret room, no bigger than a walk-in closet. But what was inside made her knees weaken. Photos. Dozens of them, taped to the walls, lined up on a table, hung by string like some twisted art gallery. Photos of her sitting at her desk, reading on the couch, brushing her hair, sleeping, taken from across the alley, every day, every night. There were journal pages too, handwritten in messy, broken words. "She reminds me of Marla, but quieter. She watches like Marla used to. I think she knows. She belongs here now." Emma clutched her stomach. This man, Daniel, he wasn't just watching her, he was replacing Marla with her. On a small shelf in the corner of the hidden room, she found something wrapped in cloth. She opened it slowly. Inside was a woman's gold bracelet and a letter. "Marla, I didn't want it to end like this, but you forced me. You stopped loving me. You were never supposed to leave. Now you'll stay, forever." Emma backed out of the room, heart racing. She had her answer now. Daniel hadn't lost Marla. He had done something to her, and now he was coming for Emma. Suddenly, she heard the front door open. Footsteps. Slow, careful. She shut the hidden room, turned off her light, and crouched behind the bed. The footsteps stopped in the hallway, and then she heard his voice. Soft, calm, almost sad. "I knew you'd come back. Marla always did too." "You're not Marla." Emma held her breath in the dark. Daniel's voice echoed softly through the bedroom. "I knew you'd come back. Marla always did too." She crouched behind the bed, knees trembling, trying not to make a sound. Her hands clutched the edge of her phone, still on silent. The silence in the room stretched thin like glass, about to break. Then the floor creaked. He was getting closer. She could hear his footsteps on the wooden floorboards, slow and measured, like he wasn't in a rush, like he knew she was already trapped. Emma's mind raced. Should I run? Should I scream? Should I fight? Then his voice came again, even closer. I didn't want to hurt her, but she stopped listening, and now, you're doing the same. Emma pressed her hand over her mouth to stop herself from crying out. She had to act. Now, she waited until his steps paused, then sprang up from behind the bed. Daniel's eyes widened. Just for a second, surprised but not shocked. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach. His eyes cold, empty. "I knew it," he said softly. "You do look like her. From the back, you could be her twin." Emma backed toward the door. "I'm not Marla," she said, voice shaking, "and I never will be." Daniel tilted his head. "No," he said calmly, "but you were watching, just like she did, always looking through the window, judging me, and now, here you are, walking through her life like you belong." Emma's hand reached for the flashlight she had dropped near the dresser. "Why did you do it?" she asked, stalling. "What did you do to her?" Daniel's eyes darkened. "She left me," he said. "She stopped being who she promised she would be. She tried to disappear, so I made sure she never really could." Emma felt her stomach twist. He wasn't even denying it. "Where is she?" "Daniel," she whispered. He stepped closer, now just a few feet away. "She's home," he said. "She's always home." Emma grabbed the flashlight and swung it hard. It hit Daniel in the side of the head. He grunted and stumbled, but didn't fall. She ran, out of the bedroom, into the hallway, nearly slipping as she hit the front door. Locked, she fumbled with the knob, trying to open it behind her. She heard him moving again. "I told you," he said, his voice turning sharper, angrier. "You shouldn't have come back." The door finally opened, and Emma burst out into the hall. She flew down the stairs 2 at a time, her lungs burning. She didn't stop until she was outside. Back in the alley. The air hit her like ice. She ran back to her building and slammed the main door shut behind her. Her fingers trembled as she climbed the stairs to her apartment. She locked every lock, every window, then dropped to the floor, shaking and breathless. Her phone, the second one, still in her pocket. She turned it on and dialed the police. It took them less than 10 minutes to arrive. Emma told them everything. The break-ins, the notes, the hidden room, the photos, the confrontation. 2 officers left to go check apartment 3B. The third stayed with Emma, asking more questions. 15 minutes later, the other officers returned. Their expressions were serious. "There's no one inside," one of them said. "No sign of anyone living there. The place is empty. Just furniture and dust." Emma stood up. "No, that's not possible. He was just there. He chased me. He said her name. They shook their heads. "We checked the whole apartment. No secret rooms, no photos, no notes. No man." Emma's mouth went dry. She looked at them, stunned. "But I saw him. I spoke to him. He was right there." The officer looked at her with concern. "Ma'am, are you sure you're not under stress? Lack of sleep? Maybe remembering things wrong?" She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, because on the table near her window, the photo of Marla was gone. That night, Emma sat on her couch, numb. The police didn't believe her. There was no evidence left. Everything was gone, like it had never happened, like Daniel had never existed. But she knew the truth. She had seen him, spoken to him, fought him, and Marla, wherever she was, had left behind too many pieces to ignore. Emma looked out the window. One last time, the light in apartment 3B was on, but this time, no one was sitting in the chair. Instead, someone was standing, facing her, a man, with a familiar face, and in his hand, he was holding up something. A phone. It lit up with a single message, sent directly to Emma's number. "Come home, Marla." The truth behind the window. Emma stared at the glowing screen across the alley. "Come home, Marla." Her heart pounded as she backed away from the window. Her body shook, but her mind raced. There were no more doubts, no more questions. Daniel Kendrick was alive. He hadn't vanished. He had been watching her this whole time, playing a game she hadn't known she was in. But now, the message made something even clearer. Daniel didn't just see her as a replacement for Marla in his mind. She was Marla. Emma called the police. Again, this time, she demanded they come immediately, that they bring someone who would believe her. She explained the message, the face in the window, everything, but by the time they arrived, the apartment across the alley was dark again. The chair was empty, the window shut, and of course, no one answered the door in apartment 3B. The officers searched once more. They found nothing. No photos, no journal, no hidden room. Just like before, one officer suggested she might be suffering from trauma or paranoia. Another said perhaps it was grief from her past she hadn't fully processed. But Emma knew better. Daniel was clever. He knew how to hide. He knew how to erase himself. He had done it before. When Marla disappeared, Emma didn't sleep that night. But she wasn't frozen with fear like before. She was thinking, planning. She remembered the voice, the writings, the photos. Everything pointed to one truth. Daniel hadn't just lost Marla. He had broken when she left. Emma believed now that Marla hadn't run. She had likely been hurt, maybe worse, by the man who claimed to love her. And Daniel had never let her go. Now he was trying to drag someone else, Emma, into that same twisted story. But this time, she wouldn't disappear quietly. The next day, Emma took the biggest risk of all. She went back to apartment 3B. She knocked. Nothing. Then she said softly through the door, "Daniel, I'm not Marla, but I know what you did, and I'm not going away." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, a voice from inside. Angry, not loud, just tired. "You don't understand." She was everything. Emma's heart pounded. "Then, tell me the truth. What happened to her?" No reply. She waited. Then the door creaked open, just a few inches. Daniel stood there, older than he looked from afar. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, dressed in clothes that hadn't been washed in weeks. "She left me," he said. "She said she was scared of me, said I was changing, but I never hurt her. I just didn't want to be alone." "Then where is she?" Emma asked gently. He stared at her for a long time, then turned away. "She's gone." Daniel let her inside. This time the apartment looked different. No dust, no silence. There were photos again, dozens of them. Marla smiling, laughing, cooking, painting. It was a shrine. She was an artist, Daniel said softly. She painted the ocean even though she'd never seen it. Emma listened quietly, letting him talk. "She got sick," he said, "and then she changed. She didn't laugh anymore. She said I scared her, that I watched her too much." Emma's voice trembled. "Did she leave?" Daniel looked away. "She tried." He didn't say anything else, but the silence that followed said enough. Emma left the apartment in tears, not from fear, from sadness. Daniel wasn't just dangerous, he was broken, lost in a loop he never escaped from. He had trapped himself in that chair by the window, night after night, trying to relive something that was already gone. But he had crossed a line when he dragged Emma into it. So she did the one thing that would end it for good. She reported him, with a full written statement. She included every detail, every photo, every word he had spoken. She told them about the secret room, the threats, the stalking, the messages. This time, an investigator listened, and within 2 days, Daniel was taken in for questioning. Police later found traces of blood beneath the floorboards in 3B. Marla's remains were confirmed. A case once labeled cold now had closure. Daniel confessed he had never planned to kill her, but in a fight, he pushed her, and she hit her head. After that, he hid her body and told the world she ran away, but he never ran from it himself. He stayed in that apartment, surrounded by ghosts, waiting for someone else to come home. And when Emma appeared, watching, curious, he saw a second chance to rewrite the past. Emma moved out the following week. She chose a place with no view of anyone else's window, no alley, no shadows. But she didn't stop living. She didn't disappear, because she had learned something powerful in all the fear, the confusion, and the danger. Some people watch because they're lonely, some because they're broken, and some because they're afraid to face what they've done. But the one being watched must never stay silent. The end.